Here's something I hear constantly from e-commerce founders. We don't want to email too much, we might be annoying people. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable, respectful even, but I've audited some email accounts doing 6 figures a month and only sending once a week, sometimes even less. In any situation like that, brand is leaving a ton of revenue on the table, even though I hate that phrase. So in this video, I'm going to be making the case for sending more emails, but also explain how to do it without torching your list or getting a ton of angry replies. Quick bit of context before we dive in. I run an email and SMS marketing agency for e-com brands. This is what we do day in, day out. So everything I'm going to share comes from working directly inside our clients' accounts. If you want to book in a call and see if we can help you, then there should be a link in the description below. Right, let's get into it. I'm going to start by acknowledging that the fear does make sense. Nobody wants to be that brand who's in your inbox every 5 minutes with a, oh, this is your last chance to save, and then the same the next day and the same the next day. We've all subscribed to those lists and instantly regretted it. So when founders tell me they don't want to be emailing too much, I get it, the concern comes from a good place. But often the brands that are scared to email more are only sending one type of email, and it is the discount, the sale, the offer email. When that is all you're sending, if you increase the frequency of that, yeah, you are going to be hacking people off and getting on their nerves and causing people to unsubscribe. That is much more of a content problem than it is a frequency problem. Another thing I hear a lot is we don't know what to send, which again makes sense if you think email equals promotions, because you can only run so many sales and offers before it gets ridiculous. You need to think of email as a communication channel, not a promotions channel. The brands who are emailing their list 3 to 4 times a week without getting a ton of unsubscribes are the ones who are sending stuff people actually want to read. Before I get into what to send, I'll just give you a quick framework on the frequency. The number of campaigns you can get away with sending each week depends on how quickly your list is growing. I would always start at 2 per week. That's the minimum I'd recommend for any brand with any kind of functioning email list. Keep an eye on how your list is growing, the subscribes versus unsubscribes, and assuming your list is still growing at a healthy rate, sending 2 a week, bump it up to 3. Then do the same thing again. If your list is still growing healthily, sending 3 a week and your deliverability is in a good spot, then you can look at bumping it up to 4 or every other day. So 3 one week, 4 the next. The key is just to keep an eye on your subscription rate versus your unsubscribe rate. If your list is growing substantially faster than you're losing people, you've got a bit of runway. If it isn't, it's time to pull back and reassess things. But 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a case for better content, not less content. And an important caveat on these sends, increasing frequency doesn't mean blasting your entire list every time. For the vast majority of your sends, I'd say 90%, you want to be sending to your core engaged audience, whether that's 60-day, 90-day, 120-day. One of those segments should be getting 90% of your content. Every now and then, say 1 in 10, if you're doing 90%, can go to your whole list. Maybe something like an offer or a plain text email for better deliverability, but the core chunk of your sends need to be to that engaged list. These are the people that actively want to hear from you. They're engaging with your content. They're more likely to click. They're more likely to buy, and they're far less likely to mark you as spam. So let's get into what you should actually be sending instead of just blasting people with discounts. As we've covered, this is the cycle I constantly see. Every email asks for something, people tune out, unsubscribes tick up, and then the brand panics and sends less. The problem was never how often you're sending emails. A simple way to plan your calendar is have 80% of the emails be value driven, and then 20% can be those promotional campaigns, offers, product highlights, and that sort of thing. People are going to engage with those value driven emails even if they're not in buying mode. You're going to nurture them with those, and then when they are in buying mode, they'll receive one of your promotional ones, and then they'll pull the trigger. So I'm going to show you 6 value driven campaign angles you can use. There are way more than this, but these are 6 we always come back to with our clients, and they work really well. So the first, and you've probably seen this before, is an us versus them style email. It compares you against a key competitor. You can be a little tongue-in-cheek and make it clear who the competitor is without saying it, or you can be much more general. It handles some silent objections before they come up. It reinforces your edge over your competitors, and it builds a lot of trust. And here's a good example of one from Byte. It's got a short header section, a little carousel across, that's a GIF there, showing some highlights of the brand. And then it goes right into an us versus them type email. Byte is a deodorant and toothpaste tube, like a sustainable brand, and it compares them against the big sort of grocery store competitors. And again, this one's focusing on the sustainability aspect, but if it is a supplement and one brand or competitor brand is underdosing massively and your brand is giving, research-backed doses, that could be what you cover in your us versus them table. The next one is some sort of humor-based emails and showing some memes. Obviously, this depends on your brand image as a whole as to whether you can get away with this. If you're a luxury fashion brand, obviously this may not work so well, but for a lot of brands, I've seen this work excellently. It's not one that's trying to get people to click through to your website. It's just something fun landing in their inbox to give them a better impression of you on the whole. This is an example from a brand, Woo Woo, who are a female intimate care brand. It's just something silly. This was a New Year's email we did for them, and it's just designed to make make their subscribers smile. It's nothing crazy. It didn't take long to set up. This was just a screenshot from an iPhone, but it works really, really well in the end. We actually got quite a few sales from this one. The next one is a product benefit style email, and this is one a lot of brands get wrong, going for the sale too early. These should be much more educational style emails, so as at the bottom of the email, the purchase seems like the obvious choice. You're not pushing it down their throat from the beginning. This is a great example from Manukura. They're leading with a pain point and what their product helps solve. So simplify your meal preps with our squeeze bottle. You've got a call to action right at the top, and then down here you've got why it's perfect for your meal prep. It's not just shoving it down their throat straight away. It is educating them on why this is solving a certain problem. Another one in a similar vein is sort of use cases and how-to guides. This is a bit more about showing how the product fits into people's lives or educating them on things they can do with your product. So if you look at these examples, if say you were selling cookware, 5 recipes people are making with product right now. That's displaying a use case of the product without pushing the sale too hard. So this is a good example of the sort of how-to style email from Methodical Coffee. So they obviously sell coffee beans, coffee grounds and things like that. But this email is just explaining in a lot of detail and going into the precise weights and things like that of how to pull a shot of espresso. It's related to their product. Obviously, you can do this with the product they offer, but they're not pushing for the sale of their specific coffee. They're just educating the customer and showing them that they know what they're talking about. Another one is ingredient spotlights. We use these a lot and they actually work for more brands than you would initially think. It's not just sort of supplement and skincare brands. If it's an apparel company, you could talk about the particular materials you use, if they're recycled, if they're organic or whatever. If it's a furniture brand, how you source the wood that goes into the furniture or whatever. There's a lot of different applications for this style of email. So this is a good example of that ingredient spotlight email from Blossom. So this is them talking about this tamanu oil, which is something they include in their skincare products. They've got a link to a blog up at the top. It's not pushing for the conversion. This is way further up the funnel than that. They're going into what makes it so special, why they include it, and then at the end, they're giving a little CTA to buy the product, because if someone's read that far, they may well be interested, but it's not what they're going for straight away. So the final angle of email we're going to go over is the objection handling email, and this is something that's definitely underused in my opinion. This is where you directly address a common objection people have to your product, whether that's from comments on your socials, from reviews, from customer feedback or something like that. Maybe your product is more expensive than the competitors, but there's a clear reason for that. You use better quality materials or whatever it may be. You can directly address that in the email. Maybe your products are all handmade to order, but that increases the shipping time. You could say, yes, our shipping time is 2 weeks, but here's why, and then compare that to a competitor who's just drop shipping something from China and explain why yours is better. So here's an example of that from a supplement brand selling creatine. They said, yeah, our creatine isn't cheap, but if we wanted to make it cheaper, you'd lose out on, and then it lists the key benefits of the product. A very, very clever way of addressing what could be seen as a negative thing and flipping it into a positive. A lot of brands shy away from doing things like this because they're nervous of drawing attention to what could be perceived as a negative thing, but it builds a huge amount of trust with your audience. So there we go. Those are 6 value-driven campaign angles you can try for your brand. There are tons more than this, but I didn't want this video to be an hour long. And to loop back to what I said at the beginning, the fear around sending more emails almost always comes back to sending the wrong type of emails, not sending too many. The shift you need is moving to content that actually earns attention. Value-led emails that teach, that entertain, that make people feel something. That's what makes higher frequency sustainable. Start at 2 campaigns a week. If your list is growing at a good rate, you can bump that up to 3. See how 3 is going. If your list is still growing at a very good rate, you can even bump it up to 4. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, this all sounds great, but I don't really have the time to plan and write and design 4 emails a week, that's where we can help. You can book a quick call with me in the description. I can take a look at what you've currently got going on, the kind of campaigns you're sending, the types of flows you've got live, and help you see where the biggest opportunity is. I can give you a plan to execute that, or if you want us to do that for you, we can talk you through how that would look. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. There's plenty more coming, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.